Welcome to Midlife Mix.
Am I your first Canadian podcast?
Oh my God. And they say you always remember your first.
Both things can be true. He's cheating on you. He's busting up your barbershop. Welcome, Nancy DiNino, to Midlife Mix.
Thank you for having me. Super excited.
Good. So you are a health and fitness expert, personal trainer, nutrition coach. You do all of the things.
All the things. For a long time.
So your goal is to particularly help women in midlife with their fitness and nutrition goals. I've heard you, say on your social media that it's like your second act or their second act. And the second act, you say, is the better act. So why is it so important to you to help women midlife with their fitness and their nutrition goals?
I have to use myself as kind of the catalyst where this happened. Our generation, I guess, no one really told us what to expect. So my journey was not a good one as I, started with perimenopause. And I really started blaming myself, thinking what the heck is happening to me? I had all the symptoms and my doctors were downplaying it because doctors don't really recognize it. I had the brain fog, anxiety, I couldn't sleep, like the classic symptoms that most women are starting to feel as they enter perimenopause. So that's kind of what motivated me to, dig into the research and the books. And I used a lot of myself as a test subject and to really make this kind of like my passion and to be able to spread the word and educate women over 40 on what happens in this stage of life and that it doesn't have to be downhill, as most people say, oh, everything's downhill after 40. It's actually a better act. It's your second act.
Mm-hmm. And you post and talk about it on social media, how, in the past, you're a fitness competitor, obviously very fit. Look at you today. We know that you're a very fit person. But you went through a phase in your life where you gained a bunch of weight and then you were left to figure it out. So tell me what that was like for you.
So like you said, as a competitor, you're on the top of the world. You think you know everything and, you're eating every couple of hours. You're doing, you're training at extremes. You're an athlete. So when I had stopped that and age started kind of creeping up on there and all of a sudden, all this unwanted weight started to creep up on me. And I was like, what's happening? Like what I used to do all through my 30s and, 20s leading into 40 doesn't work anymore. And so I was doing the cardio, a lot of cardio, wasn't losing weight, wasn't leaning out. I was decreasing my calories because that's all we're taught to do, decreasing, eating less. And that was even worse. And I was at a point where I was so fatigued, I didn't even want to get up in the morning. I had such brain fog that I couldn't even remember a conversation you and I were having. It was like someone actually drugged me. And so I started isolating myself because I thought I'm supposed to be the bill of health. Like what's happening? So all these symptoms kept on creeping up. And so I really had to start asking around, to say, okay, what's wrong with me? Am I failing? Or no, I felt like nobody could help me at that time. So I encountered a friend, and she was like, oh, you should really get your hormones checked. And I was like the classic, oh, I went to my doctor and she said, I'm fine. I've got all my blood work checked. And I said, well, no, she's fine. And she said, well, no, you have to go to someone that specializes in integrative or a functional medicine doctor that will look at your blood levels from a different perspective, an optimal perspective. And I was really hesitant because obviously I had ego. I'm like, I'm a fitness competitor. This shouldn't even be happening to me. I'm fit. This is never going to happen to me. But I mean, it's part of life. It's what women go through. So when I went to my doctor again, because my hair started falling out, had low energy, I could drink 6 cups of coffee and I wouldn't wake up. I would not wake up. I had lazy brain. My eyebrows were falling out. I was like, who am I? It was like somebody robbed my body overnight, literally. And then your doctor's like, well, we're going to give you sleeping pills. We're going to give you anxiety pills because all these things, the anxiety was crazy. But after, when that wasn't working, I went to a hormone doctor, someone that actually focuses on optimal levels. And I'm still learning at this time. And it was like an eye-opener. Not to mention, I was also researching online through a lot of theses and papers. And I was very inspired by, and I think people in my generation can understand or relate to, and remember, Suzanne Summers from Three's Company, which I loved that show. So Suzanne Summers wrote a book, and I read it because not too many people were talking about it at this time. It was taboo, right? It was like, what are you talking about? But she wrote a book called I'm Too Young for This. And she spoke about her career as an actress and like thinking she was going to lose her whole career. And she didn't know who she was. She thought she was going to lose her husband, and, you know, revealing what it really was and how to get hormonal help. So once I had that and I went to my hormonal doctor, life changed. And I was like, I have to do this because not enough women know what's going on.
So how old were you at this point?
I would say 40, 41.
And that was after a lifetime of being a fitness competitor and being healthy. So how did that make you feel emotionally when you look at the mirror and you probably didn't recognize yourself?
I didn't. I thought it was my fault. What am I doing wrong? I was isolated and I was really depressed, really, really depressed. And it was hard for me because here I am in the public eye and I'm like hiding. I'm hiding from cameras. I'm hiding from events. I'm hiding even from my family because I felt like nobody could understand me and they just wanted me to accept it. It's all part of aging. And I was like, no, I can't live sick. Like, I can't live sick. There's got to be a better way. Because if you thought I was going to live like this for the rest of my life, I'm like, you might as well put me in a senior citizen home right now. Mm-hmm. So it was probably the lowest point of my life, thinking there was no hope and thinking that my best days were gone and everything was downhill. And when everybody around you is telling you that, it's almost like I almost fell into it because, you know, everybody around you wants to be like them. They want to bring you down, right? But I was like, no. So that's when I started going into the education, getting the certifications in menopausal nutrition, and really pairing it with all the other certifications and knowledge that I had, strength training. And that led my whole new journey. And I said, this is where my focus is now. I was born to do this.
Why do you think as women we're like this and we can get complacent? Because, you know, you mentioned it earlier when you said nobody talks about this. Nobody warned us what was coming. I often sort of compare this phase of life to second puberty because the first puberty, you know, there's pamphlets, there's health doctors, there's nurses that come to the school telling you what to expect. And then when you sort of reach perimenopause, it's like you're on your own. Nobody knows what's happening. And then like, I know I'm of the generation that, you know, my mother didn't talk about this stuff. Our mothers didn't hand down any information about what was happening with them at the time. So we're kind of all going into this blind. So why do you think as women, we're just some women are so quick to be like, you know what? It's just because we're older now. You just got to live with it. Is it lack of education?
Lack of education. Maybe lack of change. They're afraid to change. And because when you have a doctor that's telling you that you're fine, or the average, you know, the societal norm is that everything's downhill, accept it. I think that women just take that easy route, you know, and it is a lot of work to take care of yourself. First of all, you got to eat, you know, healthy. Then you're supposed to exercise. And now to throw into this whole bucket, into the mix of this recipe, we got to talk about hormone imbalances. And you're like, what? Like, what is that? And you really don't understand your body. They're not in tune with their body and how great they can really feel.
Mm-hmm. You know, talk about change. How has your relationship with food and fitness changed from who you were in your 20s and 30s to who you are now?
Great question. If I could go back, like, as you know, we grew up in that generation where, you know, it was rake thin models, super thin, and you had to be skinny, or it was the Baywatch girls. And I was none of those, right? Like, I felt like a little ninja, like, you know, the ugly duckling had thick legs, you know, coming from a European and Venezuelan family. And I'm like, oh, I don't look like this, right? So I had to work hard, very hard for everything. It never came naturally or easy for me. But in terms of how I train and eat now, I always say what you did before doesn't work, because now we got to consider the effect that exercise and your nutrition plays on your hormones and your gut and your metabolism, and not just for the actual concept of eating healthy or heart healthy, or, for your heart, or eating clean. Two different components. And I think that's probably the hardest thing for people to understand. If you don't fix what's happening on the inside with your hormones, it doesn't matter how healthy you eat, how many calories you're consuming a day, or how hard you're exercising, nothing will change. And that's exactly what was happening to me. The first thing we all think is, oh, I'm not able to lose fat. It's become stubborn fat. I'm going to do more cardio. So I would do hours of cardio because that's a person I was. I'm like, okay, if half an hour is not working, I'm going to do 45 minutes of cardio, and 45 is not working, then we're going to do an hour. When in fact, that was working against me. And same with your calories. We're trained, not losing fat, not building muscle, let's lower those calories. And we are conditioned to think that less is more, and it's not. It's actually the opposite. And that is the biggest game changer for me in my learning, and what I pass on, that just eating less is actually making you store fat. So I guess the two biggest components is like the cardio is not the answer. Strength training is the answer. Muscle is your medicine. It is the prescription to anti-aging. And eating less is not more. You have to eat more in order to expedite a metabolism and support your hormones.
We hear a lot today about high protein. Women need protein. Get your protein. Eat your protein. It's like all I ever hear about, when I scroll social media or open up a magazine. Do you think that today's high protein diet is going to be like the 90s low fat diet fad, where we're going to look back and 20 years from now and be like, it's circled back?
I mean, by textbook, high protein is great. And it is. It's what builds muscle and keeps you healthy. But that's about like this much when it comes to what you need to do to really support your body from a holistic perspective. And I think from a ground level, like that's kind of like the inch of it, right? But then we have to work on, okay, your carbohydrates are just as important. And we've been taught our lives, don't eat after 6 p.m., you're going to get fat. Don't eat carbohydrates or, you're going to gain weight. When this couldn't be further from the truth. These are large, grand statements that are not supported by their textbook, but they're not supported from a holistic view. Like that's one bold statement. But if I were to look at you specifically, especially, into your 40s and 50s, we have to look at your lifestyle, what your energy output is, and how carbohydrates are needed in order for you to supply your energy and your muscle building in the gym, right? So we have to look at that from a holistic perspective.
But is there such thing as because you always hear this too, is good carbs, bad carbs?
100%.
Okay, so
100%.
break it down. What am I not supposed to be eating right now?
So first I will say I eat carbs right up until almost 9:30 at night.
Oh.
Okay. But it's the good carbs, the low glycemic carbs that we're looking at, right? So simple rule of thumb, take out the white and put the brown in there, right?
Okay.
So of course, if you're eating chips and cookies and everything, a different story. But if you're actually eating, sweet potato or brown rice, or like those plain rice cakes and you have a treat, those things are fine because it's a balance of everything. If you're saying no carbs, who's going to live on no carbs for the rest of your life? Because I know I'm not. I like food, right? So I like my carbs, right? So I can eat, right? But it's about making sure that you're supplying yourself with the right energy, and more so my whole theory is it's not a diet. Okay. And people say, oh, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Well, if you give me 1,000 calories, that's a diet. I don't care what anybody says. Like that's one meal for me.
Yeah.
Right. And the biggest change for me was learning to increase my calories and to be able to sustain your body at a maintenance level calories where you're healthy, but you're able to build muscle and you're boosting your metabolism, because that's where your body wants to be. The more calories you eat, then it increases metabolic rate, good calories and healthy calories. Obviously, we have macronutrients and micronutrients, but if you eat 1,000 calories, if you eat 1,300 calories and you're an active person, your metabolic rate slows down and you lose muscle. So those are two major things that are working against you over 40, right? So when you think you're in a deficit, you're actually not, because your metabolism lowers. So what you think is a deficit is no longer a deficit. It's now your new maintenance, and that's why you're stuck and plateauing. And now your body's like, okay, it's in fight or flight mode. We're not going to hang on. We're going to store everything we can. In fact, we're going to store fat because you're not giving me any food. And I always kind of put the analogy of a bonfire, right? Or a car that has no gas. Think of the wood as food and protein. And what do you do when you want to have a fire? You have to put the wood in the fire, and the fire will burn. And the fire is your metabolism. So you keep putting the wood in there so that the fire can burn and the flames are high. But if you stop putting wood into the fire, what happens?
Yeah, dies.
Dies. And that's like your metabolism. It's like the gas tank's on empty. And we're trying to build a V8 engine. Because at the end of the day, we really want a metabolism that's going to work for us, that has nutritional forgiveness, rather than be on a diet and following macros and everything for the rest of your life. But we have to build that. It's a sustainable approach.
Can we settle the bread debate? Like, do you eat bread?
I do eat bread in moderation, but it would be not white. I'd eat like rye or sourdough. I usually only eat bread, like if it's like toast, with my egg whites or anything in the morning. But like if it's in moderation, it's okay. Because like I said, if you build a metabolism that's thriving, then your body's actually going to just eat that up and use it as fuel. But if you haven't gone through the process of building a metabolism that's on fire, then you're just going to plateau. You're going to store it as fat.
I think there's maybe it's a misconception. I think it's a misconception that people think gluten-free bread is healthier, or somehow they'll lose weight if they switch to gluten-free.
No, yeah, there's that misconception. Gluten-free is because you have intolerances. It's not a matter of losing weight, right? Two different variables, right? It's like apples and oranges. It's healthier for your inside and for your gut, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose weight faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's something we tell ourselves. Yeah, I'm having this 12-inch sub, but it's on gluten-free bread.
Yeah, it is just the misinformation. It's just all marketing. And I always sometimes I look at things and I'm like, really? Like, it's like the salad. Eat a salad, but then the salad's this big and it has cheese and almonds and everything in it that it's over 1,000 calories when you go to Wendy's or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, that's half my caloric intake today. Yeah. So the quality of your foods are so important when we get into midlife. And that's another whole, we could get into, right? It's not just calories and macros, but we have to look at the timing of foods, the quality of foods, and how they're breaking down in your system to balance hormones and make sure that the gut and the inflammation is actually low.
So what happens to our bodies in perimenopause and menopause?
Well, in a nutshell, basically, our bodies are going through, we stop menstruating, some of us, we're getting irregular periods, and the hormones that we've depended on all our life are changing and they're on the decline. So we don't understand this because we've been living a certain way, but like you said, if you can compare it to puberty, they're all over the place, right? So normally we have higher estrogen levels and progesterone levels are kind of our 5 main hormones. And our sex hormones, we have estrogen, progesterone, we have DHEA, and then our thyroid, right? So what happens is as we start to have irregular periods and we get into perimenopause, the hormone imbalances they decline. That's where the imbalances start. So it starts usually with an estrogen and progesterone imbalance. And they're kind of like sister and brother. Mm-hmm. And so when you see that, people with irregular periods or they stop menstruating, then our estrogen declines. And, I think the biggest question is, the comment that I hear is, I've got this meno belly all of a sudden, and I've got this fat here, unexpected fat. And I even got that. I was like, I never used to have fat here. or the bat wings on the back of your bra. And you're like, okay, what is going on? Okay. Like usually for me, it was like in my butt or my legs, but now I'm getting stuff up here. What's going on? And what happens is when your estrogen is thriving, there's an equal distribution of, fat in your body, right? Gives you curves and those hourglass curves that we all seek. But as they're on the decline, it tends to shift to the mid area. And there's no one hormone that works on its own. They all work in synergy with one another, right? Because then we have to talk about testosterone. And so when you have an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen, a lot of think there's symptoms that go with it, with estrogen and progesterone. Say, for example, for me, I lost my period early, like because I was competing. I was 32 and I was done. And they said it's because you're low body fat and this and that. But so for me, I was like, okay, well, this hormone stuff, it's not going to affect me. But progesterone is what helps you sleep, right? It's kind of like the one that always wants to keep you at ease. And when that falls, the anxiety starts, right? And affects your testosterone. So your miracle pill really with that is having higher progesterone so that you can sleep. So these are the symptoms that you start to experience. And the whole goal is making sure you're eating the right foods to balance those hormones. And with a hybrid approach, you can actually go into the bioidentical hormone world where that'll really be kind of like where you want to be. And that's the whole topic about, oh my God, what are these bioidentical hormones? And I think there's a lot of myth and misunderstanding and not enough education behind what it can do to get your second act started.
Are you talking about hormone replacement therapy?
Yes.
Oh,
yes. Okay. And there's such a misconception on what it is. And regular doctors don't prescribe it. And this is where we go. My story is I had an underactive thyroid for probably more than 3 years, and I was misdiagnosed. I said my hair was falling out. I was getting brain fog and anxiety, and I was misdiagnosed. It was the fact that I had an underactive thyroid for years, hence why I was gaining so much weight. And the doctor's like, well, I did your TSH levels, and it's fine. But if you were to test yourself from an optimal perspective, medical doctors are not trained. They feed pharmaceutical industry. Like doctors are great. They listen to you, but all they do is listen and prescribe, right? So she only tested for what we call a TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone. What they don't test for is your free T3, your T4, and you need your T4 is in inactive thyroid form. It converts to T3. But all of these things are your thermometer, they support your metabolism. So I was underactive, but I didn't know this till I went to a functional doctor. And the whole point of bioidentical hormones, they are natural, they're planned, they are mirroring the hormones that we used to have when we were 30, but we no longer have them. So they're replacing those hormones so we can function back to an optimal level again. They're not chemicals. They're not, taboo and all these things, but they are what gives us our second act back because that's how we functioned at 30 or 35, but our body doesn't produce them anymore. It's almost like omega, right? Our body doesn't produce enough fish oil, so we have to supplement it back in, and that's what we're doing.
So if you want to advocate for yourself, like you said, you were experiencing those different symptoms, like you had anxiety, hair falling out, gaining weight, what have you. So if you go to the doctor and you want to actually get them to listen to you, and they run just a simple blood panel, should we go in there and say, no, I need you to test X, Y, and Z?
100%. And if you have a good doctor, they'll listen to you. And this is what I didn't do back then because I did not know. But I encourage anyone that I work with, even, I'm advocating, educate yourself. I even have a whole guide on what you should look for when you're testing. Go into your doctor and say, I want this tested. And there's like your 5 simple kind of main ones that you can go to. Now, they may not read it as that's the 2-prong, right? So 1, they don't test, and 2, they don't read it from an optimal perspective. So they're going to say, oh, your thyroid's fine. It's fine. But it's a band of putting everybody from 20-year-old in there to 60-year-old, right? 60-year-olds. And you're like, well, how are you comparing me to that 20-year-old, right? So that's why it's important that 1, if you trust your doctor and they're open, that you say, I want this tested. I don't want just my TSH tested, right? Or you seek out someone that will, someone that's practices integrative medicine, functional medicine doctor.
So are you talking about holistic?
They're holistic, but they do both. Like they go into functional medicine, like naturopaths. So they believe in the regular medicine that they are trained to do, but they also will mix that holistic integrative approach as well.
And when you say you have a guide of what to ask for anybody listening or watching this, where can they find your guide?
On Instagram.
Okay.
And if you just put blood work, we'll be able to send it to you. And it basically says, like, these are the symptoms and this is what you need to go and get tested for. But the funny thing is, if you actually Google a functional medicine doctor or integrative medicine doctor that focuses in bioidentical hormones, they'll know exactly what you need. Like they'll be like, yep, I got to do a full blood hormonal panel and this is what I got to look for and this is what I'll test for. You go to your doctor and like, whoa, like we're not paid to do that. That's not paid for, right? So, just go blood work on Instagram and we'll send that over to you.
And okay, so let's say we go to the functional doctor, we find out what we're lacking in regard to our hormones. If we do the hormone replacement therapy, is that going to fix our symptoms? Like, will our hair grow back, or is there like a combination of other stuff we need to be doing?
It's not the end all be all by far, right? It's you need to do the ground level work first. And that's what I teach a lot of the women. Like, don't be running to your doctor to say this isn't working, because if you're not eating healthy and you're not exercising, all the bioidentical hormones in the world are not going to fix your symptoms, right? We need to start at a ground level where we got to practice good, healthy eating habits and exercise. We got to back off that cardio and get into the gym and lift weights. Like, lifting weights is going to support your metabolism. It elevates your metabolism and you're burning calories well after your workout. Where cardio, you're going to do that. It increases your cortisol levels and will cause you to store fat. And so what happens when you're done cardio is that's it. You stop burning. And that's it. And then your adrenal glands are like exhausted. And so you really need to put a combination of that, but really focus on strength training that's going to build muscle, give you longevity, good, strong bones and joints and limbs and everything else, so that you're not like, when you're 80, you can get up those stairs and you have that mobility that you need and the strength. And you're not saying, I've fallen and I can't get up.
That commercial is ingrained in our minds.
I know.
Embedded.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Can we talk about supplements for a second? Because it's overwhelming. I hear so many, on social media and, just through talking with friends and family. Oh, you need to be taking this. You need to be taking this. So you be creatine and magnesium. And like, if you were just starting out and you said, okay, Rachel, let's say I'm not taking any supplements, which, full disclosure, I buy them and I forget to take them.
Oh my gosh.
Don't judge me. But if you said, Rachel, stock these 3 supplements right now and start taking them, what are you going to tell me to take?
Vitamin D.
Yeah.
Magnesium. Probiotics.
All right. What's that going to fix?
Okay. So we got vitamin D, which also is vitamin K with it too for your bone support. And then magnesium as well. Both work for the absorption, and magnesium is also the one that kind of helps with your brain. Usually has GABA in it, or glycinate, helps you sleep, and the two kind of work in synergy. Probiotics is helping you restore the good bacteria in your stomach. Okay, so usually as we get older, you find that there's more sensitivities, inflammation, and our gut is really sensitive. And that's why we say as we get older, inflammation increases, and we have to start changing the way we eat and how our foods are kind of digested. So probiotics, 100%.
And does it matter when you take these supplements? And can you just have your little pill divider and pop them first thing in the morning like our grandparents used to do so we don't forget? Like, can you just go pop, pop, pop and go on your way?
Don't laugh, because I still have my pill divider. It's like this big, right? So probiotics, not necessarily, it doesn't really matter when you take it. Magnesium's better at night because it kind of gives you that relaxation in your mind to slow down so that you can sleep properly at night. And vitamin D, you want to kind of make sure you have that earlier in the day and with food. So, I mean, is it crucial? No. I'd rather say, Rachel, take them rather than miss them. But there is a certain timing for you. It's like digestive enzymes. It's good to have that with your heavier meals that are more compounded. And, you want to take that right before you eat or during your meal so it can help break down the food that's difficult to digest.
How many supplements are you taking? Come on.
At least 10. But
A
that's
day?
with my bioidentical hormones.
You take 10 a day.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's overwhelming for me.
I know. But you don't start all at once.
Okay.
And remember, I tell people supplements are there in addition to. Okay? So the food is where you get your nutrients. But if you're lacking in the nutrients, the food is there. They help, like vitamins don't give you energy. They help break down the energy from the food.
Right.
Like digestive enzymes. So they're not the end all be all. So if you're having lattes and Diet Coke and eating protein bars and then hamburgers and having all these supplements, doesn't matter. It ain't working.
Wasting my time.
And then you say, oh, I'm plateauing. And I'm like, oh my God, you're not plateauing. Oh, I can't build muscle. Well, you're not eating muscle building foods. The conversation usually that I like to say, or the words, so many people, I need to lose weight. I need to lose fat. You need to rewire that conversation and that dialogue to say, I need to build more muscle. Because the more muscle you have, it's a body composition change. Then the more muscle mass you have, the less fat mass you have.
Because muscle burns fat.
Correct.
I remembered that one.
Yes.
So let's talk about working out. You're a personal trainer, but I saw you on Instagram where you said, and you admit to it, that you won't work with just anybody and that you have turned people away. So who will you not work with? What kind of people?
And well, there's two different things. I'm not here to motivate somebody to get off the couch. You already need to have the volition and the discipline and those habits to want to do it because it starts from the inside. I can't be there saying, okay, get off of the couch today. And you just don't have the commitment to prioritize health. So if someone's willing to prioritize health and they have the commitment and the dedication and the consistency to do it, then you're in. I don't work with someone that's never lifted weights before. Like I really work with people that are familiar and love going to the gym. Now, in my app, there are, for those that are like, I aspire to get to the gym. Inside my app, I do have programs for people to start off so they can get in progress and transition to the gym, which is fine. And then we get into, let's get into a higher level. So I'm working with more of an intermediate level person, but it's their habits and their mindset that has to see this as a lifestyle and not a quick fix. This is a long-term sustainable approach because I am very in tune with fixing your metabolism so that it works for you for life so you have nutritional freedom. And number two, lifting weights for longevity and for building that muscle and raising that metabolism. But I'm also very, very technical because I'm like the form fixer. I'm really into having proper form and technique in order to execute so that you look like you belong in the gym. And you look, how many times, and I'm sure you go to the gym, you see women slaving away on the cardio machines, and then you see them 6 months later and they never really change. Their bodies look the exact same. And that's either A, they don't have the knowledge. You don't know what you don't know. You go to what you're always used to. Or two, they're not eating enough or the right foods, or they're just not training with the proper form.
That's true. I mean, not that I go to the gym. I hate the fucking gym, but like I do work out with a personal trainer. Well, I was, but I had to take a break, but I'm going back.
Okay.
I promise.
And no one says that you have to go in there and balls to the wall.
Yeah.
But you need to do something because you're going to lose your posture. You're going to be frail and you bump into a wall, and all of a sudden your bones are going to be brittle and breaking in 20 years. And God forbid, I don't want anyone wiping my ass when I'm 80. Like, I want to be able to carry my dog's food up the stairs and be able to be a little bit more independent than being at home and somebody taking care of me that doesn't give a shit and leaving me in bed.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
that's how I think. Like, walk into a hospital for a day and see these people walking around, shoulders bent over. It's not a good feeling.
No, it's true what you said. Muscle is medicine.
Muscle is medicine.
Like,
it's a prescription to anti-aging.
Yeah. I look at some of these like older ladies, like old ladies, like, I don't want to say old, but like, 80s, oldish. So I don't know these days, but with like, this is how I'm going to measure it. Like with a big dog, because I'm a dog person. And I'm like, I don't want to have to own a little dog when I'm 80 because I can't control a big one. But maybe that's a goal.
It is a goal. Going up steps.
Yes.
Right? Some people want to stay in their homes. They don't want to go to a bit, but they're like, my home has stairs. And they just can't even get up the stairs.
Yeah.
And their posture's so bad. You get that neck curve, right? You get your shoulders are, even as I'm sitting, I always tell my girls, we have like a whole form intake to make sure your shoulders are back. So we don't start this all the time. And it's hard. We all have 9-to-5 jobs. What do we do all day?
Well, and plus we're on our phones.
All day like this.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than this.
Yeah.
You're training this muscle and posture to be like this rather than pushing it back. Right? And that's where your injuries and your pain come from. And we want to be pain-free. So it really starts on our everyday habits, as I was saying. But if you're trying to take supplements, that's not going to fix your posture. It's not going to build your muscle. It's the food and the training that are going to do that. And just being consistent, at least 3-4 times a week to start. For someone like yourself that doesn't like the gym.
I don't. I hate the gym.
What do you hate about it? What do you hate about it?
I enjoyed working with a personal trainer because it was all heavy lifting weights. And I did like that. And I just had to take a break because I'm doing a renovation and, it's costly. Because let's face it, personal trainers are great, but they're not cheap, right? So that could be a barrier for some women. But I loved working with her and loved lifting the weights. But I don't like going to like a gym full of like lots of people that are sweating everywhere and like grunting and that stuff. Like I just don't like that stuff.
So we have to find you another gym.
No, I'll just go to my personal trainer and go in her basement.
Okay. All right. But
like
that's
that
okay.
one-on-one attention.
Like if you have a well-equipped,
Yeah.
After COVID, people were buying home gyms and, and that's great to be able to do that, right? You're starting somewhere. You got some dumbbells, a couple of barbells, a bench, and then you can progress from there.
Yeah.
Right. But that's kind of like where we need to start to get that muscle tone going and building the strength that you need. And it's a mental strength. Like a lot of people go to the gym to release stress and it's a mental fortitude that you obtain through this, right? It's therapy. I know that when my uncle was in intensive care, he was the healthiest person and he ended up with cancer. And that's sometimes it just, we try and do everything right, but cancer doesn't discriminate, unfortunately. It doesn't discriminate, right? So before I went to see him in intensive care and sat by his bed, I went to the gym every morning, and it was the only thing that kept me sane. I'm not saying I went there to push some weights and grunt and everything else, but it was more to get my body going and to move and just to release that stress. And it was like kind of like that mental stimulation that I needed.
And let's be honest, as a woman, when you lift a heavy weight that you never imagined you could lift, you feel like a badass. Let's be honest.
Like a badass. Strong women are just bad. You see it. Yeah. I always say women are strong and sexy. And my whole premise for that is that it's an everyday life, right? It's not just in the gym. Do you know how many women now are more confident, can do things more independently? They don't have to, depend on their partners. And they can walk in, whether they're real estates or CEOs, they can walk into a room and turn heads just like any 20-year-old. I have a 57-year-old right now, and a 20-year-old went up to her and said, I want to be like you. You're badass at 57. Her arms are nice and toned, and she walks like she owns it. And she looks better than the 20-year-old. That's your second act right there. And we have greater experience and greater confidence. And you know what? We put up with less shit as we get older, right?
Yes.
Right? Because I know my patience is like this. And I just know that what my worth is and what I want to do as I go forward. So I'm not putting up with crap. I have no patience.
Including, following our old exercise routines, like you said. Like I know growing
What
up, it
was
was
I
always
thinking?
the elliptical, the treadmill, the step aerobics. It was all about sweating for cardio.
The hardest thing for myself even was to think, because, I'm that A-type personality. So I'm like, I have to do more, but it's actually working against you. The more cardio I did, I'm like, oh my God, this is why you're holding onto fat, because you're not feeding. And when I hear women are eating 1,000 calories or under 1,500 calories, I want to cringe. I want to cringe because you are starving your body. And this is why the midlife years are so important, because we can't live on 1,500 calories. Now, if you're on a specific goal, right? Or, someone's competing, has a goal, running a marathon, or has a wedding, different story. It's a very short term or short-lived time that you would do that. But we need to be up to our maintenance calories where we can function and be healthy so that our hormones are supported. Even anybody that I start with, any of my clients, before we even get into, the whole mechanism of training and nutrition, we do a prime and reset. And what we do for 30 to 45 days is we analyze all your biometrics and your kind of hormone biometrics. I call it a shreds report. Your sleep, your hydration, your energy levels, your digestion. Because everything else on the scale and all that doesn't matter. If we don't heal your gut, reduce inflammation, and balance your hormones, it's not going to matter what I feed. You could eat chicken and broccoli till the cows come home. You're still not going to change. Mm-hmm. So if we don't reduce the inflammation, we don't heal our guts and balance hormones, that's the first step so that we can see results.
Okay, I have a confession.
I love confessions. Is this like a truth or dare thing?
No, but you might disapprove. It's 1 p.m. I have not eaten yet at all today. And typically, I've done intermittent fasting before and it's worked. And normally I would have eaten by now, but maybe like noon. But because, I'm here and busy, I just don't have anything.
I don't want to hear you're busy.
Okay. I've had coffee. Okay. But not black coffee because that's gross. But like,
let me guess,
cream,
double.
Sugar. No, 2 cream, 1 sugar. So I've cut down, but brings me back to intermittent fasting, because we hear like, oh, you should do it because you should give your gut a break. But then as we get older, it's like, no, you got to have your protein right away. So am I sabotaging myself right now? Should I continue with intermittent fasting, or should I sort of adapt the school of, okay, get up, do your workout, and then eat something?
Wow. Do we have another hour?
You're going to fix me?
Yeah.
You got like 15 minutes.
Okay.
To fix me.
So I'm an advocate of intermittent fasting.
Are you?
Oh,
okay.
I've been
so you're not mad at me?
fasting. But intermittent fasting for over 10 years, that actually is part of my change, because as a competitor, we're taught eat these small little meals every 2 hours. That's all I did, right? Mm-hmm. Eating 6-8 meals a day sometimes, but they were like this big, which at that time, for the purpose that it served, it worked. So intermittent fasting, and there is, you listen to doctors and there's the research that's out there, and there is 2 schools of thought, but you always have to consider what your goal is. Okay. And then we'll get to you. So intermittent fasting is a concept. It's a tool, right? It's not a calorie restriction or diet. We are just shifting the times that you're eating. So intermittent fasting is very effective for burning that stubborn fat, because when you're eating all the time, every 2 hours, 1, you are using carbohydrates as your fuel source. Okay, so when you do that, what happens? Hormones go up, your insulin goes up, your glucose rises. So you're always going on this roller coaster. Hence the reason if you're eating the wrong foods, you feel like you get that nap after, like, oh my God, I'm going to sleep, right? Because you have this spike in insulin and glucose. But with intermittent fasting, we're just shifting your window further out so that we allow our body to use fat as our energy source, to tap into those stubborn fat stores that we women get, the meno belly, in our midlife. And so now we're not using carbohydrates as our fuel source. We're teaching our body to use fat as our fuel source. So we're going to be able to burn the stubborn fat. That said, intermittent fasting is effective if you're eating all the calories you're supposed to eat in a day. So back to you. It's like Family Feud, right? Remember Family Feud?
Yeah.
Anyways, so if you're not eating all your calories, you in fact lower your metabolism. It's a double whammy. So now we get into the problem where the other school of thought with doctors is intermittent fasting. It's hard on the body. If you don't eat in the morning, it's going to raise your cortisol, which is true on the textbook, right? This is when I say, what is your goal? But if you have stubborn fat to lose, there's ways to support and lower cortisol on specific days. So I'm not saying fast every day. Put it in your routine 3 times a week on, non-consecutive days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Because then you're teaching your body to be efficient on fuel sources such as carbohydrates and fat. So we can drink BCAAs, branched chain amino acids. We can have things to support and lower cortisol, okay? So again, what is your goal? So if you're integrating that, using that as a hybrid approach, but you have to be eating your calories. So if you're not eating all your calories, then I don't recommend trying intermittent fasting because now your body's just hanging on to everything it gets. And intermittent fasting works if you're eating the right foods. So these coffee creamers are breaking a fast. So you're not really fasting.
Well,
no. Listen to me. This is the biggest mistakes I hear. Oh, Nancy, intermittent fasting doesn't work for me. I'm like, okay, tell me what you ate this morning. Oh, I just had my coffee. What was in your coffee? I had 2 creams, sugar. No, you're not fasting. You've just caused your insulin to spike right up. So the only thing you can have in your fasting window is liquid and typically under 10 calories. So now I'm going to go way back. Old school of research, 0 calories. But the new research, you talk to, Dr. Thomas DeLauer and many people that support intermittent fasting now, if it's under 10 calories, then it's not enough to really spike your insulin, right? Which would break your fast. So, if it's a little splash of milk or coconut milk, that's okay. And you're like, oh, I can't have coffee like that.
Yeah,
but
what's the
many
point?
people are drinking so many things that are breaking their fast. So they're not truly fasting. You've already broken your fast and you're not feeding your body. So it's a big no-no. No bueno.
but okay, so you said you have to eat all your calories. But then everything you hear is that you have to be in a calorie deficit. So
it's okay if you're in a calorie deficit, but you got to eat those calories in that window.
So your calorie deficit calories?
Yes.
Okay.
But most people think, oh, I can't eat all my calories in my calorie window because there's so many different protocols. So they don't eat the calories. So now you're fasting, holy cortisol like jumping up and down. And now you're not eating all your calories. You're going to lower your metabolism.
Oh, so you're screwing yourself.
You're screwed. It's like a double whammy.
Oh.
So you have to eat the calories, whether you're at maintenance or you're deficit. Eat the damn calories.
How do you know
and
many
get rid
calories?
of the cream. So now that's another hour passed, right?
Just a quick formula. I could have you here all day.
I know. So, we get into macronutrients and everybody's different based on their weight, their height, and how much energy they expend, how active they are during the day. That creates your formula, right? So we have your maintenance calorie. Most women are around 2,000. That's why people jump to 1,500 calories when they're in a deficit. So typically the rule of thumb, we kind of look at 1 gram of protein per pound of body fat. That's your quickest and fastest if you don't have a calculator, formula, or anything like that. So if you weigh 140 pounds, start with 140 grams of protein. And then you're going to go to your carbohydrates, which we want that to be relatively around 35 to 45%. And then your fats are lower at 20%.
Okay. So what would you say to the women who are obviously wanting to lose weight and instead
lose fat?
Yes, lose fat.
See, we got to change
That's right.
the dialogue.
Change the dialogue. Instead of committing to the workouts, the nutrition, the food planning, why don't we just get like a little shot of the Ozempic? Like, what are you going to say to those women?
I knew this was going to come up.
Yeah. Because it's so huge right now.
I try and stay away from it. But
yeah.
Here's the thing. Again, remember the goal.
Yeah.
The Ozempic.
It's a cuter way of saying it.
It's cuter to say that. It serves its purpose. There's a lot of overweight people, obese people that do not have any of the habits. And I think it's from that point, it might be a good start for them. Start, but not for them to be on it long term. Sometimes people need that little kickstart. But everyday people are using I have a little bit of fat on my waist and this and that. But they don't talk about what is happening to your body during that time. 40% of what you're losing is muscle, not fat. Muscle weighs more than fat, right? So they call it the candle, Ozempic face.
Yeah.
Because your face looked like
Gaunt.
Because you're losing your muscle density. So now you've already aged 10 years. So even though you're losing weight, 40% of that is muscle. And then the trickle effect happens, right? Your face, your muscle fibers are weak, right? Like everything kind of happens from there. So, and then when you go off of it, it's not teaching the habit of eating. So if people need it as a kickstart, hey, I can't knock it, but it's not the end all be all. And they're using it for the wrong purposes. And then they think, I'm on the Ozempic, I can eat whatever I want. But at the end of the day, you're not feeding any your heart and your health and your bones and all that muscle's going away.
And is it like any other fad or diet where it works for as long as you do it, but then as soon as you stop taking it,
it controls your hunger, right? And if you don't have the habits, once you stop using it, you're going to go back to your old self.
Yeah.
Right. So I always say I don't do one night stands. Right. And I talk about that.
Another podcast.
I don't do one night stands. So for me, it's longevity, right? So if I can't sustain, that's why for me, keto is great for a lot of people. But you think I'm going to do that long term? No, I want my pizza. So you have to be realistic with your lifestyle. You have to choose something that you're going to do. And it's balance and moderation, right? 80-20 approach. So I would go on keto maybe for a couple of weeks if I wanted to shed quickly, but I'm not going to do that for the rest of my life, right? Not going to happen. So all of these are fads. And then there's a different, portion of Ozempic and GLP-1 and da-da-da. It's like, okay, enough already. Can we just do the right things?
What are the right things?
Eating healthy, exercising, going for walks. Even if you hate cardio, get your 8,000 to 10,000 steps in. Eat nutrient-dense foods, whole foods, nothing in a package. Getting your protein in, yes, it's a good start, but if it's in a package like a protein bar and you're eating that every day, no bueno either. Like we need nutrient-dense foods. Because then we talk about, not a whole topic, the thermogenic effect of food, right? And that is, how your body's absorbing, digesting the food, eliminating, and metabolizing the food. So if you're not eating something like protein, which is the highest on the list, and you have something low, then your metabolism doesn't raise. So protein, it's great, but if you think that that's your end all be all, like it's not, it doesn't work like that. You need to eat complete proteins, whole foods, chicken, fish, steak, ground beef, ground turkeys, things that keep you satiated.
And for a woman in midlife who maybe has never worked out and they've just, hit their late 40s, early 50s, and they have the menno belly, as you said. Is it too late?
Never too late. I have women starting, my oldest right now is 71, and they would have started at like 55, and they've got abs. It's consistency on that route. So it's never too late. So if you haven't lifted weights and you're in your 50s, whatever, you can start, right? Start with your 2-pounders. Start with bands. Start with a kettlebell. No one said you're going to go into the gym and be like, I'm going to lift 20 pounds. It's not going to happen, right? So we want to work on just getting the blood circulation, building the muscle, toning, strengthening the bones. You start at 2 pounds, you go to 5 to 7. Progressively build up. Because muscle's your medicine.
Muscle's your medicine. So just start, right?
Just start.
Just do it.
Just do it. That's what Michael Jordan says.
That's good advice, as was this podcast. So thank you so much, Nancy, for coming in. I really
My
enjoyed having
pleasure.
you in, and it was very insightful.
Thank you so much.